there is a juxtaposition that I observed yesterday during media availability between Kalani Sitake and Kyle Whittingham that we need to analyze here on this podcast. Now, I will say this at the outset. There was a question asked to Kyle Whittingham by one of his regulars during his press conference saying, as you approach your final rivalry game as head coach, and Kyle Whittingham was really quick to say, whoa, hold your horses. Nobody's decided if it's my final rivalry game. Now, while I believe that Kyle Whittingham may not have made the final call, we are closing in on Kyle's final stand as Utah's football coach. There's just no doubt about that. You can read the tea leaves, you can argue with me all you want, but it feels like we are nearing the end of Kyle Whittingham's legendary run at the University of Utah. And there's no other word other than describe it as legendary because he's done some pretty incredible things as head coach of the Utes. But in his old age, he has gotten a little, crotchety is probably a good term for how he approaches this rivalry. And I think it was really implicated, or I think not implicated, but it was really pointed out to me by a question. I believe it was Jeff Rainier from Fox 13 had an interesting question for Kyle Whittingham, and Kyle Whittingham shut it down before Jeff even finished the question. Here is the Q&A from Kyle Whittingham answering a question about BYU quarterback Bear Bachmeier.
What have you seen from BYU quarterback Bear Bachmeier?
I'm just going to focus on us this week, our guys, our coaches. So I'm not going to give much thought on the opponent this week. And so, really, you have to ask them, what they think of Bear. So.
Now, Kyle, I understand, wants to focus on its team. I absolutely believe that to be true. But I also believe that Kyle Whittingham, there is one thing, not one thing, there are two things I believe that brought him back as head coach of Utah this year, because I do believe that there was some thought in his mind about wrapping it up and hanging it up last season had things gone differently. Had a guy like Cam Rising stayed healthy, he may have ridden off into the sunset with that being his final run as Utah's head coach. Well, anything other than ordinary happened for Utah last year. They struggled mightily, and obviously losing to BYU and losing in what they consider to be controversial fashion, that obviously, I think, necessitated in his eyes a return to restore Utah to what he believes it should be at before he hands it off to Morgan Scalley. Well, I believe that Kyle Whittingham has every intention of coaching his you-know-what off this week to get a win over BYU, because I do believe that he could step aside at the end of the season, and he wants to go out a winner, and he wants to go out a winner over his alma mater, speaking of BYU. Now, that answer and, the question and answer about him saying, I'm focusing on my team. He didn't want to talk about Bear Bachmeier whatsoever. Well, let's consider what Kalani Sitake did with a very similar question. I believe this was from Dana Green from ABC4, and he was asked about Devin Dampier, and here's what Kalani Sitake's Q&A about the opposing quarterback went like.
And then I wanted to ask you quickly just about Devin Dampier. I mean, he is fully healthy again. This is a guy that can beat you with his legs and his arm. What do you see from him? How special of a quarterback is he?
Yeah, super talented, and he's tough, man. He has great vision, and that's in the passing game and in the running game. He's an efficient player. So when you look at his stats, I mean, he knows where to go with the ball. And he's well coached. I think Jason Beck's done a great job tutoring him, mentoring him, and there's a reason why they brought him, with him. And so I think he looks really comfortable out there, and whatever you need him to do, he's willing to do it, and super tough. I think a lot of attention will go to his legs because he can run, but he can throw too. And I like this overall presence on the field. Definitely respect what he does, and he's going to be dangerous. He's got our attention. I know. Coach Hill and the rest of the coaches are trying to find ways to try to see if we can disrupt his timing and disrupt everything that he can do positively on the field. But that's easier said than done. He's a really good player. He's tough, and then you complement that with a really talented O-line, very athletic and tough, and then tight ends that can block, receivers that can catch the ball, all that stuff. They got a really good team on offense, and then. You already know how I feel about the defense and defense coordinator with Morgan Scalley. He's a good friend of mine, and all the coaches that are there that I know really well, Lewis Powell and all them. Those are my guys, But this is when it comes down to it. We're not the ones playing the game. We had our moments already. We're old has-beens or never was, but it's kind of fun to see these young guys get after it. And I'm a little jealous. They're in the Big 12 and they get to do this. We were in the WAC in the Mountain West when we got to do it. So this is a really cool upgrade for the rivalry game.
There's Kalani Sitake. Can you kind of tell the difference between these two? Kalani treats this rivalry much like his predecessor and his former head coach, Lavelle Edwards, did. He is collegial. He is very straightforward about acknowledging everything that Utah meant to him in his coaching career, because he spent a decade up there, starting out as a position coach and ultimately ending up as the defensive coordinator under Kyle Whittingham. He had a great run at Utah, and now he's done some incredible things. We talked about it yesterday, if you're an everydayer here on the podcast, about what he's meant to BYU and now his decade-long tenure as BYU's head coach. But the approach that Kyle Whittingham takes versus Kalani Sitake couldn't be more different. Kyle, I believe, absolutely has every intention of putting everything he's got into this game to win it. Well, Kyle Whittingham may have that intention, but Kalani Sitake, he also has every intention of doing that, but it also speaks to how Kalani Sitake approaches this versus Kyle Whittingham. Here's more from Kalani Sitake yesterday on how he and his coaching staff are approaching this all-important rivalry game.
Looking at the rivalry week, it is what it is. I mean, it usually comes at the end of the year. We're all used to that, but this is a fun game, and so the fact that there's connections and that we're familiar with them and they're familiar with us, it just makes it even more fun. I don't know if the attention's any different, because I think we're all professionals. I think you look at their side, they're going to do the same thing. When it's all said and done, the guys on the field are the ones that make the plays, and so we all become fans when they're out there playing the game 11 on 11. So I like to think that we're all professional about it. It's not like we're sinking everything we got into this one. That's what we do all the time as professionals in our jobs, and this week just like every other week. But we know the implications and the attention that comes to this game.
I love that answer from Kalani Sitake. It was absolutely the right answer. And I think it speaks to exactly how he approaches this. He says, we're not putting all our eggs in the basket of this game individually, but you can guarantee we are not taking it as if it's every other game out there. That can come off as you can think that, hey, you approached it the wrong way. No, Kalani Sitake knows what the implications of this game are. But I think that Kyle Whittingham, he wants nothing more than to win on his rival's home turf. And if it is his final run as head coach in Salt Lake City, he absolutely wants to go out a winner. And I think his comments about the rivalry itself speak more to how important this game individually, as it could be his final one in the rivalry's history, is to him.
It's rivalry week. Got to go on the road. I guess it's going to be a big noon kickoff will be there, even though it's not the big noon game of the week. They'll be down there, and so we'll have to have a great week of practice as always. Between the two teams, there's a lot of similarities statistically. Both rushing for roughly the same amount, throwing for roughly the same amount, scoring roughly the same amount. Defensively, there's a lot of similarities as well. Both in the upper third of the conference in most of the key stats, and so should make for a great matchup, and away we go.
There you have it. Kyle Whittingham, before that, Kalani Sitake. A big thank you to Utah Athletics for the video and audio from Kyle Whittingham, and a big thank you to BYU Athletics from the video and audio from Kalani Sitake. But I'm telling you, folks, there are two head coaches here who are dear friends, because Kyle Whittingham and Kalani Sitake have very much acknowledged that fact. But man, one of those coaches, crotchety, is what I would describe Kyle Whittingham's approach to this rivalry, and I think he's absolutely hell-bent on making sure that his team has every opportunity to win this game. I'm not expecting Kalani Sitake to cower away from that, but Kalani Sitake's approach, it's far more, as I said, collegial. It's more warm. It's more inviting, but you can guarantee that he wants nothing more than to have 3 in a row hanging over his mentor, one of his mentors, in this game on Saturday night.